Don't touch that fork. Every conversation stops. A young waitress in black vest and crisp white shirt breaks through the carefully choreographed dance of fine dining. La Corona's main room, 80 guests in silk and Italian wool, freezes mid-bite. Lorenzo's security moves like shadows given form. She sidesteps the first hand, voice cracking with urgency. Sir, the truffle reduction. It's poisoned. At the center table, Lorenzo Luca, the don of the northeastern families, sits before seared duck breast glazed in black truffle reduction. His fork rises toward his mouth, a single morsel glistening in candlelight. Marco Castellano, the second in command at Lorenzo's right hand, rises sharply. His face flashes pale, then floods with color. Restrain this lunatic.
Now.
But the girl's eyes stay locked on the plate. Her nostrils flare, catching something beneath the earthy richness of Alba truffles and aged balsamic. Something no one else in this room of made men and their mistresses can detect. Lorenzo's fork stops. What does a waitress know that a room full of killers cannot see? Before we begin, have you ever had a gut feeling that saved someone's life? Or ignored one and regretted it? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. Because what I'm about to tell you will make you question whether some gifts are blessings or curses. People think having a superpower would be amazing. Let me tell you, it's hell. My name is Rose Castellan, and I can smell things you can't. Not perfume or garbage or someone's bad breath. I smell chemistry. The breakdown of proteins. The oxidation of metals. The exact moment milk will curdle 3 days before it happens. I smell lies.
Fear. Death.
My father did this to me. Dr. James Castellan wasn't trying to ruin my childhood when he turned our kitchen into a laboratory. He was trying to save my life. Every weekend, while other 7-year-olds watched cartoons, I sat at our table identifying compounds by scent alone. This one, Rose. Tell me what you smell. I'd close my eyes, inhale. Bitter almonds.
Marzipan.
But metallic underneath. Good girl. That's cyanide. If you ever smell that in food, you run. Promise me. I promised. 11 years ago, my father's pharmaceutical lab exploded. They said it was an accident. Faulty gas line. His body was identified by dental records. But I was 12, and I'd already learned that accidents don't smell like gasoline and gunpowder mixed together. I told the police, the social worker, the foster parents. Nobody believed the girl who smelled things that weren't there. The group homes were worse. They medicated me, called my gift a delusion. One caseworker actually said, "Honey, you're grieving. Your brain is playing tricks." My brain wasn't playing tricks when I smelled rat poison in the group home kitchen and saved 4 kids from a suicide attempt that would have looked like food poisoning. Nobody thanked me. They just upped my dosage. I ran at 16. Now I'm 23, working at La Corona Ristorante in Little Italy. And my gift? It makes me valuable to chefs who need to know if the fish is fresh or if the wine is turned. They call me their secret weapon. They have no idea how right they are. This morning, I woke up in my Queens apartment, shared with 3 other restaurant workers who think I'm just weird, not dangerous, and pulled out my father's laboratory notebook. I do this every morning. Read his notes. Trace his handwriting. Remember that once someone believed me. Today's page. Rose, my brilliant girl. Trust your nose. It will never lie to you, even when the world does. I tucked the notebook into my vest, put on my professional smile, and headed to work. I had no idea that by tonight, I'd break the cardinal rule of the Mafia. I'd touch the dawn. The moment Lorenzo Luca walked into La Corona, the temperature dropped. I don't mean literally. I mean every server, every busboy, every person in that dining room felt it. The air got heavier. Conversations quieted to murmurs. Even the kitchen, where Chef Russo normally yelled instructions like a drill sergeant, went silent. The Don didn't demand attention. He claimed it. He was 54 but looked ageless. Perfectly tailored pinstripe suit. Silver threading through dark hair, slicked back with precision. A face that could have belonged to a banker or a professor until you looked at his eyes.
Cold.
Empty. The eyes of a man who'd watched people die and felt nothing. 6 bodyguards flanked him. One checked the room with eyes that cataloged every exit, every face, every hand that moved too quickly. Another pulled out his chair. Lorenzo sat without acknowledging any of them. Marco Castellano, his second-in-command, sat at his right. Younger, maybe 40, with a kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He laughed too loud at Lorenzo's quiet comments. Tried too hard. I was assigned their section. Lucky me. I approached with a wine list, keeping my eyes down, my voice soft. In places like this, waitresses are furniture. Seen but not heard. Useful but not memorable. Good evening, Mr. Luca. Chef Russo has prepared. The usual. Lorenzo's voice was a whisper that somehow filled the room. He didn't look at me. Of course. The duck breast with black truffle reduction. Your private vintage from. Just bring it. I nodded and turned toward the kitchen. That's when I smelled it.
Faint.
Underneath the rich, earthy aroma of truffles and aged balsamic, there was something else. Something that made my stomach twist. Metallic sweet. Chemical.
Wrong.
I stopped mid-step. My father's voice echoed in my head. Trust your nose, Rose. It will never lie to you. I pushed through the kitchen doors. Chef Russo was plating the duck with surgical precision. The truffle reduction gleamed like black gold under the heat lamps. I leaned closer, pretending to check the garnish.
There.
The smell intensified. Hidden beneath layers of butter and wine and fungal richness, a scent that didn't belong. My pulse hammered. I knew this smell. I'd studied it in my father's notes. Aconite. Wolfsbane. A cardiotoxin that mimics a heart attack. Tasteless. Odorless to most people. But not to me. Someone had poisoned the Don's food. Quick question for you. If you knew someone was about to be poisoned, but saving them meant exposing yourself to dangerous people, would you stay silent or speak up? Drop a speak up or stay silent in the comments. No judgment. Let's see where everyone stands. And if you're hooked on this story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you'll want to see how this goes down. I need you to understand something. What I'm about to tell you, I didn't see in real time. I pieced it together later, from whispers, from security footage I wasn't supposed to see, from the smell that Marco couldn't wash off his hands even 3 hours after. But I'll tell it like I was there. Because, in a way, I was. 2 p.m. 6 hours before service. Marco Castellano entered La Corona's kitchen through the service entrance, the one without cameras since the renovation he'd personally overseen last month. He moved like he belonged there. Because he did. 20 years at Lorenzo's side. 20 years of loyalty, brotherhood, blood. 20 years of watching Lorenzo take everything Marco believed should be his. In his pocket, a small amber vial. No label. Inside, a clear liquid that smelled of nothing to normal people. But to someone like me? To someone like my father had been? It sang with death. The truffle reduction simmered on low heat, already prepared for evening service. Chef Russo was in the walk-in cooler, taking inventory. The sous chef had stepped outside for a cigarette, a habit Marco had encouraged, had timed, had weaponized. 90 seconds. That's all he had. Marco's hand trembled as he pulled out the vial. Not from fear. From anticipation. This is for the territory you denied me. For the respect you never gave. For making me second when I should have been first. 3 drops into the reduction. Aconite extract, synthesized in a lab that no longer existed by a chemist who died in an accident 11 years ago. My father's lab. My father's formula. My father's death. Marco stirred the sauce gently, watching the drops disappear into the dark liquid. Invisible.
Perfect.
In 6 hours, Lorenzo would take his first bite. His heart would seize. He'd collapse at the table, and the Calabrian family, seated at table 6, would be blamed. Territory wars would erupt. Chaos would reign. And Marco would emerge as the peacemaker, The new dawn, the man who reluctantly took power to save the family. He checked his watch. 87 seconds. Right on schedule. Marco slipped the vial back into his pocket and walked out the same way he'd entered. In the dining room, he'd sit at Lorenzo's right hand. He'd smile.
He'd pour the wine.
He'd watch his oldest friend die and feel nothing but satisfaction. But Marco made one mistake. He assumed no one would smell what he'd done. He didn't know about the waitress with the dead father and the gift that wouldn't let her forget.
He didn't know about me.
Okay, real talk time. Marco just poisoned his best friend of 20 years for power. Some of you are thinking, betrayal is unforgivable. Others might be thinking, maybe Lorenzo deserved it. We don't know what he did. Where do you stand? Team Marco or Team Lorenzo? Comment below, and don't hold back. Also, if this story is giving you chills, smash that like button and subscribe because the next part is where everything explodes. Literally. Have you ever had a moment where your body moved before your brain caught up? Where instinct overrode every survival mechanism, every self-preservation alarm screaming, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. That's what happened when I watched Lorenzo Luca lift that fork to his mouth. I was carrying a wine bottle. Chateau Margaux, 1995. $3,000. I dropped it. The crash silenced the room. Every head turned. And I ran. Not toward the kitchen. Not toward the exit. Toward the most dangerous man in New York, my hand outstretched, my voice ripping from my throat in a scream I didn't recognize as my own. Don't eat that fork. Wrong words.
Panic does that.
Makes you stupid. Don't touch that food. Lorenzo's fork froze 6 inches from his mouth. Duck breast glistening with truffle reduction. Death in fine dining. I didn't slow down. I couldn't. My hand shot across the table, across the sacred space between servant and master, and I slapped the fork out of his hand. It clattered against his plate. Truffle sauce splattered across white linen. The room didn't just go silent. It stopped breathing. Lorenzo stared at me.
Not angry.
Not shocked. Just empty. Those dead eyes processing what had just happened. Calculating whether I was insane, suicidal, or both. Then I felt it. Cold steel pressed against my forehead. The bodyguard had moved faster than thought. Gun barrel digging into my skull, his other hand twisted in my hair, yanking my head back. On your knees. My legs gave out. Or maybe he forced me down. I couldn't tell. The room spun. 80 sets of eyes locked on me. Some horrified. Some excited. Like they'd paid for dinner and a show. Marco stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. His face drained white, then flushed crimson. What the hell is wrong with you? Remove this lunatic immediately. Too loud. Too forceful. The voice of a man trying to redirect attention. But I wasn't looking at Marco. I was looking at Lorenzo. He hadn't moved. Fork on the plate. Eyes on me. One hand raised, slightly. The universal signal for wait. Speak. His voice was a whisper that cut through chaos. My mouth went dry. The gun pressed harder against my skull. I could smell the bodyguard's cologne. His sweat. The metallic tang of the weapon. And underneath it all, the scent from the plate. Poison disguised as luxury. The truffle reduction. I gasped. It's poisoned. Aconite. Wolfsbane extract. You'd be dead in 4 minutes. Someone laughed. A guest at table 3. Like I'd told a joke. Lorenzo's expression didn't change. How do you know this? I can smell it. The metallic sweet signature underneath the truffle oil. She's insane. Marco again, moving closer. Lorenzo, she's clearly having a psychotic break. Let security handle this before she. Marco. Lorenzo's whisper sliced through his second-in-command's words. Sit down. Marco froze. For just a second, I saw something flash across his face.
Fear.
Lorenzo lifted the plate, brought it to his nose. Inhaled slowly. I held my breath. He set it down. Looked at the bodyguard. Take her to the office. Don't hurt her. Yet. The gun left my forehead. Hands grabbed my arms, lifting me.
I didn't resist. Couldn't.
My legs had forgotten how to work. As they dragged me toward the back, I caught Marco's expression.
He wasn't looking at me.
He was looking at the plate, at the sauce he'd poisoned 6 hours ago, at his plan unraveling in real time. And his left hand, trembled. The last thing I heard before the office door closed was Lorenzo's voice, soft as death.
Marco.
You're coming too. The office was a wine cellar converted into an interrogation room. Concrete walls. Single bulb hanging from the ceiling. A wooden table with restraints bolted to the surface. Restraints that had been used, recently, based on the smell of blood and fear soaked into the grain. They didn't strap me down. Small mercies. Lorenzo sat across from me. Marco stood behind him, arms crossed, face unreadable now. The bodyguard who'd held the gun to my head, Santino, I'd heard someone call him, blocked the door. I was going to die here. Not from poison. From the truth. Lorenzo folded his hands on the table. You have 2 minutes to convince me you're not insane. Start with your name. Rose Castellan. Occupation. Waitress. Here. 6 months. And you claim to smell poison. I don't claim. I can. My voice shook. My father trained me. Chemical detection. He was a pharmaceutical chemist. He taught me to identify compounds by scent alone. Marco scoffed. That's not possible. I ignored him. Kept my eyes on Lorenzo. Your wine. The vintage you were drinking. Chateau Margaux, 1995. Left Bank Bordeaux. Predominant notes of blackcurrant and tobacco with secondary cedar and graphite. The 1995 vintage specifically has a higher tannin structure than the 96 because of the hot summer that year. You can smell the difference. Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but he didn't interrupt.
I pressed on.
The truffle reduction. Perigord black truffles, not Alba whites. Butter base, aged balsamic from Medina, at least 12 years based on the viscosity I saw on the plate. Reduced Barolo wine, probably a Nebbiolo grape. And underneath all of that, I stopped. Swallowed hard. Aconite. Wolfsbane extract. 3 drops, added approximately 6 hours ago based on the oxidation rate I detected. It works by disrupting sodium channels in cardiac tissue. You would have felt chest pain first, then arrhythmia, then cardiac arrest. For minutes, start to finish. Looks like a heart attack.
Clean.
Professional. The room went silent. Lorenzo leaned back. You're saying someone in my organization tried to kill me tonight. I'm saying someone did.
Who?
This was it. The moment where I either lived or died. I looked at Marco. He stared back, face stone. But his left hand, still trembling. I don't know, I lied. But I know who made the poison. Lorenzo's eyes narrowed. Explain. The compound structure. The delivery method. The oxidation signature. I reached slowly into my vest pocket. Santino's hand moved to his weapon.
Easy.
Just paper. I pulled out my father's laboratory notebook. Worn leather. Water-stained. Gold embossing barely visible. Dr. James Castellan. I placed it on the table. My father didn't just teach me to detect chemicals. He created them. For pharmaceutical companies. For government contracts. I opened to a specific page. And for people who paid him to make things that couldn't be traced. Lorenzo picked up the notebook. Scanned the page. His expression changed. Not much, but enough. Your father was the chemist. Yes. The one who died 11 years ago. The one who was murdered 11 years ago. I met his eyes. Because he refused to make something someone wanted. A poison that looked like natural causes. Something that couldn't be detected by autopsy. I pointed at the notebook. At the formula on the page. Aconite extraction protocol. Modified synthesis. Enhanced absorption rate. My voice cracked. He wouldn't finish it. So they killed him. Made it look like a lab accident. And then they used his research anyway. Who is they? I looked at Marco again. His face had gone pale. Whoever added 3 drops to your truffle reduction today used my father's exact formula. Pause for a reality check. Rose just accused someone in Lorenzo's inner circle of murder, without directly naming Marco. Is she playing this smart or about to get herself killed? Drop "smart move" or "she's dead" in the comments. And if your heart is racing right now, hit that like and subscribe because things are getting intense as Rose pulls out the receipts that'll blow this whole conspiracy wide open. Lorenzo closed the notebook, placed it carefully on the table. His fingers drummed once, a soft, rhythmic sound that somehow felt like a countdown to violence. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that 11 years ago, someone murdered your father for a poison formula. And tonight, that same someone tried to use that formula on me." "Yes. And you expect me to believe you just happened to be working here when this occurred?" This was the trap. The logical inconsistency that would get me killed. I took a breath. I've been looking for my father's killer for 5 years. Since I aged out of foster care and could finally investigate without caseworkers blocking me. Looking where? Everywhere his research appeared. 3 accidental deaths in the pharmaceutical industry. 2 heart attacks in organized crime families. 1 congressional aide who committed suicide with a compound that matched my father's notes. I pointed at the notebook. He kept records. Not just formulas. Client codes. Payment schedules. Drop locations. Lorenzo opened the notebook again. Flipped to the back pages. His expression darkened. These codes. They're territory markers.
Payment routes.
The same ones your organization uses. I leaned forward. My father didn't work for just anyone, Mr. Luca. He worked for families. Your family. The Calabrians. The Russians. Anyone who needed something that couldn't be traced. That doesn't explain why you're here tonight. Yes, it does. I turned to the final page. The one I'd memorized years ago. The one that kept me alive through every foster home, every group home, every night sleeping in subway cars. 3 weeks before my father died, he received a request. A custom order. Aconite extraction, modified for oral delivery, undetectable by standard toxicology. The payment was double his usual rate. I pointed at the client code. MC 47. Manhattan Commission, Unit 47. Lorenzo's eyes flicked to Marco. Marco hadn't moved, but the color had drained from his face completely now. He refused the job. I continued. He'd stopped taking contracts 6 months earlier. He wanted out. Wanted to focus on legitimate pharmaceutical research. He told them no. And they killed him for it. They killed him and stole his research. His lab burned, but the formulas survived. Someone kept them, used them, sold them. I looked directly at Marco now. And tonight, someone used the exact synthesis method my father invented to poison the dawn of the organization that once employed him. The silence stretched. Lorenzo's fingers stopped drumming. Marco. His voice was soft.
Deadly.
Show me your hands. Marco's jaw tightened. Lorenzo, you can't seriously believe. Your hands. Slowly, Marco extended both hands. Palms down on the table. I could smell it from 6 feet away. Faint, but unmistakable. The chemical signature that clung to skin, that soap couldn't wash away, that only time and metabolism could eliminate. His left hand. I said quietly. The scent is strongest on his left index and middle fingers. Where he held the vial. Where he stirred the sauce. Lorenzo leaned forward. Inhaled. He couldn't smell what I smelled. Nobody could.
But he could see what I saw.
Marco's left hand.
Trembling.
I had the kitchen searched after Miss Castellan's outburst, Lorenzo said conversationally. Found this behind the dumpster outside the service entrance. He reached into his jacket. Pulled out a small amber vial. Empty. The same service entrance you had renovated last month, Marco. The one where the camera mysteriously malfunctioned. Marco's face went from pale to gray. The Calabrians weren't coming to negotiate tonight, Lorenzo continued. You invited them. You were going to kill me and blame them. Start a war. Position yourself as the peacemaker who reluctantly took control to save the family. Lorenzo, I swear. 20 years. Lorenzo's whisper cut like razors. 20 years I trusted you. gave you power, made you my brother.
He stood.
Walked around the table. Stopped behind Marco. You killed a chemist 11 years ago because he wouldn't make your poison. So you stole his research. Waited for the right moment. The right patsy. Lorenzo placed both hands on Marco's shoulders. And you would have succeeded. If not for his daughter. He looked at me. Those dead eyes suddenly different. Not warm. Never warm. But no longer empty. She smells ghosts, Marco. The ghost of her father. The ghost of your ambition. His grip tightened. The ghost you're about to become. Marco lunged.
Fast.
Faster than I expected. His hand went to his jacket. Santino's gun barked once. Marco slumped forward onto the table. Blood pooled around the amber vial. I didn't scream. Should have.
Couldn't.
My body had gone numb. Lorenzo stepped back, adjusting his cuffs. Not a drop of blood on him. Santino.
Clean this.
Quietly. Marco had a heart attack. Very tragic. Very sudden. He picked up my father's notebook. Miss Castellan, walk with me. I stood on shaking legs. Followed him out of the wine cellar, past Marco's body, past Santino already making phone calls. Into the restaurant where 80 guests still sat, unaware that the man who'd tried to orchestrate a massacre was bleeding out in the basement. Lorenzo stopped at the door. Turned to me. You saved my life tonight. That creates a debt. I don't want. What you want is irrelevant. He handed me the notebook. Your father was good at what he did. You inherited more than his nose. He gestured to the dining room, to the tables full of dangerous men and their mistresses. You're no longer a waitress, Miss Castellan. As of tonight, you work for me. You will vet every meal I eat, every drink I take, every person who gets close enough to harm me. And if I refuse? Lorenzo smiled. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. You won't, because whoever else used your father's research is still out there. And they know, as of tonight, that someone could detect their work. He leaned closer. You have a gift, Rose. In my world, gifts don't make you special. They make you useful. He walked back into the dining room, leaving me standing in the doorway. Behind me, the sound of cleaning. In front of me, a room full of monsters. And somewhere in my vest pocket, my father's notebook, warm against my chest. Trust your nose, Rose. It will never lie to you, even when the world does. I'd saved a monster tonight. Now I had to figure out if that made me a hero. Or something worse. Fire your thoughts. Rose just went from invisible waitress to the Dawn's personal poison detector, and she's trapped in a world she can't escape. Some of you are thinking she's a hero. She saved a life. Others are thinking she just became complicit with the Mafia. What do you think? Is Rose a hero, or has she become something darker? Drop your honest opinion below. This story isn't over. Hit like and subscribe because the next part shows Rose navigating her new life as Lorenzo's shadow. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when the other families find out about the girl who smells death. I should have known Lorenzo didn't survive this long by being careless. The dinner table stretched before us like a battlefield dressed in white linen. Crystal glasses caught the candlelight, throwing fractured rainbows across faces I'd learned to read over the past weeks. But tonight, everything felt different.
Sharper.
Like the air itself was holding its breath. Lorenzo sat at the head of the table, relaxed as a cat in sunshine. Too relaxed. He laughed at Marco's joke, raised his glass to Salvatore's toast, asked about Giovanni's mother's health, playing his role perfectly while I stood in my corner, hands folded, eyes downcast. But I was hunting. The scent hit me before I even knew what I was searching for, acrid and metallic, cutting through the cologne and cigar smoke like a blade.
Fear.
Raw, animal fear, mixed with something else. Gunpowder. Fresh. Recent. My eyes flicked toward the guards lining the walls. Giuseppe stood by the window, stone-faced as always. Antonio by the door, hand resting casually near his holster. But there, Paolo, third from the left, sweat beading at his temple despite the cool evening. His fingers twitched. His pulse thundered so loud in his veins I could practically hear it. Lorenzo caught my eye. One slight nod. I stepped forward, voice steady despite my racing heart. Signore, forgive the interruption. But Paolo looks unwell. Perhaps he needs air? The room froze. Every eye turned to Paolo, whose face drained of color. Actually, Lorenzo said, setting down his wine with deliberate care, I think Paolo needs to tell us about the gun he's carrying. The one that isn't his service weapon. The one paid for by the Calabrese family. Paolo's hand jerked toward his jacket. He never made it. If you're as hooked as I was terrified in that moment, smash that like button. Drop a comment telling me, would you have spoken up or kept silent? And subscribe so you don't miss what happens when loyalty gets tested in blood. Trust me, you'll want to see this. They made me watch. Lorenzo didn't give the order with words. Just a glance toward his men, cold and absolute as winter. Paolo screamed. He begged. He named names, 3 others in a room, all scrambling now, all caught in the net I'd helped weave. The shots rang out like thunder in that ornate dining room. Crystal shattered. Wine spilled across white tablecloths, mixing with darker stains. I pressed myself against the wall, hands over my mouth, ball rising in my throat.
This was my fault.
My nose. My words. Don't look away, Rose. Lorenzo's voice cut through the chaos, gentle but unyielding. He stood beside me now, hand on my shoulder. Not comforting. Anchoring. You saved my life tonight. Saved this family. But you need to understand what that means. His fingers tightened. This world doesn't forgive weakness. It doesn't reward hesitation. You're either all in, or you're already dead. The bodies were dragged out. Someone brought new wine. The dinner continued as if 4 men hadn't just bled out on imported marble. I wanted to run. Back to my crumbling apartment, my double shifts, my life of invisible anonymity. But I'd crossed a line tonight that couldn't be uncrossed. The moment I opened my mouth, I'd chosen a side. And Lorenzo knew it. You're too valuable to waste on tables now, he said, pouring me a glass I didn't want. You're going to help me survive, Rose. And in return, I'll make sure you never go hungry again. I took the glass with shaking hands. I'd saved a monster to escape poverty. Now I belong to him. They don't call me Rose anymore. Well, Lorenzo does, but only in private. To everyone else, I'm La Cagna, the Bloodhound. Some say it with respect. Most say it with fear. I've stopped caring which. It's been 3 months since the purge. 3 months since I stood beside Lorenzo and became something I never wanted to be. His shadow. His living lie detector. The woman who smells betrayal before it even forms into thought. Every morning, I taste his coffee before he does. Every evening, I stand behind him at meetings, breathing in the room's secrets. Who's nervous? Who's lying? Who reeks of another family's cologne? I've stopped 3 assassination attempts, uncovered 2 embezzlement schemes, and identified a federal informant based solely on the scent of courthouse soap. Lorenzo treats me like a prized possession. Dresses me in designer clothes that feel like costumes. Pays me more in a week than I made in a year at Antonio's. Keeps me close, always close, his hand on my elbow, his eyes watching me watch everyone else. I should hate it. Hate him. Hate what I've become. But God help me, I don't go to bed hungry anymore. Last night, another family dinner. Another test. I leaned close to Lorenzo as Vittorio proposed a new partnership, close enough to whisper, he's lying. Cologne's too expensive for his cash flow. Someone's bankrolling him. Lorenzo smiled. Squeezed my hand beneath the table. Vittorio's body was found in the river this morning. I stood at my penthouse window. My penthouse, paid for in blood and treachery, and watched the sun rise over a city that feels different now.
Smaller.
Like a map I've learned to read through scent and shadow. The waitress who served coffee and dreamed of something better? She died the night she spoke up. What's left is sharper, darker, more dangerous. But at least she's never invisible again. And that's Rose's story. Did she make the right choice, or did she sell her soul? Would you have taken Lorenzo's offer? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear if you're Team Rose or think she went too far. If this story grabbed you, Smash that like button and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you up at night. Thanks for reading, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones we become.
How can you even think about eating after what you just saw? Mind your own business.
Yeah.
This does not concern you.
Yeah.
How can you even think about eating after what you just saw? Mind your own business.
Yeah.
This does not concern you.